Hey, good morning. Good to be with you here on a Tuesday breakfast with Jesus and you. It may not be a beautiful day in terms of the weather, but it is beautiful in terms of temperature. Woo! Man, this cool front came through and it's delightful. Yeah, we still got a lot of rain and whatnot kicking around, but I'll take it, man, after all that heat wave and oh boy, nice to have a little refreshing change, and we'll enjoy that for the next however long it lasts. So, but good morning, good to see you guys. Let's see, we've got Jack and Jackie and Linda. Yes, shalom. Jane and Bernadette. You guys get the prize. Jumping right in, right from the outset. I do appreciate that so much. So yeah, we're continuing our journey here into this shared life of Christ. And I really hope that you are, learning how to view these stories and things that we see recorded here in the Gospels from the perspective that, yeah, it, this stuff that Jesus did, that he, showed the disciples how to do. Well, I can picture myself right there in the midst of it all, doing all this stuff. Even as I've mentioned before, if you meditate on some of these miracles and, just picture yourself standing with Jesus, and he he says, "Well, you know what to do, right? Go ahead, you do it." You end up doing whatever the thing was that was recorded there in that miracle, but you do it, right? I mean, that discipline of picturing yourself and imagining and thinking deeply and intently on anything, that's a big part of the mind renewal process. And the Lord has been really revealing so much about that, even in the so-called secular world of psychology and neurology, the study of the brain and how the brain functions. We're able to see much more deeply into the brain than ever before because of MRI and other kinds of technology that give us the ability to do that. And it's amazing how science is catching up to the Bible. Um, you know, the Bible tells us that we have to get our minds renewed, and scientists can actually point to where that's happening, right? What's going on physically in our brains as our minds are being renewed. And I believe that, the Lord is going to give us insight on how to leverage that so that we can actually accelerate that mind renewal process and short circuit a lot of the nonsense that we all deal with or dealt with, so that in our own lives and in the lives of people that we help, we're going to see major advances in setting people free quickly so that they can truly be free. And that's my heart, man. I'm telling you, you know, seeing people get free to become what you're created to be, there's just no greater joy than that. So, we're looking here today. We're going to jump into Mark chapter 6, and just to continue you know, our walk with Jesus here. Um, Again, I'm trying to loosely follow some semblance of a chronology in terms of what actually happened, in the life of Christ and when it happened. So this particular time, this occurred after John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod. And I'm sure you're familiar with that story, but if not, it's right there in Mark 6 and the other three Gospels as well. Crazy story, um, how that comes about, but we won't get into that at this point. Um, and it also happens after the disciples return from their first mission trip, which we've been talking about now for the past couple of weeks. Jesus gave them all these instructions and sent them out 2 by 2 to basically practice doing what they had seen him do and sharing and speaking and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. So we pick this up here in Mark chapter 6 and verse 30. It says, "And the apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught." So they just basically had a debrief, which is an excellent practice to have when you are in any kind of a teaching and training, or really any sort of an organizational kind of a mode. It's always great to do a debrief where everybody gets to kind of share and talk about it, maybe have questions and whatever. It's just a wonderful thing. And I love the fact that that Jesus engaged in that with his disciples, right? And he next says something, I just love this. He says to them, this is verse 31, "Come away by yourselves to a lonely place and rest a while." Ah, we tend to think of Jesus, as go, go, go every day. He's, doing stuff. And yes, there were some instances reported in the Gospels where he would go away by himself for the night and just spend the night in prayer and just, really be alone with the Father. And, that obviously is a very important thing that we all can do as well. And, but here, these guys out there, they were working hard, doing everything. They come back and he says, "You know what? Let's just take a break, guys. You deserve some downtime to just kind of recoup a little and relax and whatnot." And I just love that. And it really does speak to that balance that we all need to have, right? If you're one of these so-called type A personalities, as I was at one time in my life, oh my gosh, I mean, every day, if I didn't get something done, man, I felt like I wasn't, really functioning or alive, and, God had to really deal with me on that because my energy, my strength, my ideas generally weren't working out the way I hoped they would. And he's he just basically looks at you and, "So how's that working out for you?" It's like, ay, ay, ay. So yeah, I love this. That they did that. They went away in the boat, verse 32, to a lonely place by themselves. And I'm quite sure they were looking forward to some R&R with Jesus, even if it was for just a day, right? It would have been so nice. But how many of you have learned the 11th commandment? I've spoken about it here, I think, on a couple of occasions in the past. If you're going to be successful in the kingdom of God, there is an 11th commandment that we've got to know, embrace, and live. And that is, thou shalt be flexible. All right, because rarely do things go the way we plan or we hope. And it's no different here for Jesus and the disciples. Verse 33, "And the people saw them going, and many recognized them, and they ran there together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them." Now I'm like, how in the world did they know where they were going? But evidently, whatever direction they saw Jesus and the disciples going in, they must have known enough about the territory to realize, I'll bet you they're going, it'd be kind of like, seeing them walking toward a park that you know exists down that way. It's, oh, they're going to the park. Let's all run around back and get there before them. Well, that's what happened. You know, these people were like, we got to be there. So that's what happens. So, you know, and so keep in mind, they're in the boat, right? They all get in boats and they're now traveling across the Sea of Galilee. And yet these people get there ahead of them. Oh my gosh. So disembarking, verse 34, Jesus saw a great multitude and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. So, you know, it's one of the more difficult things for us as humans to feel like I deserve this time to just chill. And when people, you know, put demands on us, and there just seems like there's no way that we can break away, at least at that point in time. I'm not saying that we should not make plans to rest. All right. We have to do that. But there's always this superseding kind of truth here, that even if we're wanting to do this for our own well-being, right? Everything in the kingdom is always focused on people and loving people, meeting needs, being there for people. And Jesus demonstrates that for us so powerfully. You know, he was the one that said, hey guys, let's just get away for a bit and relax, you know. And that didn't happen. Yet his response, look at this, his response to that was not anger, frustration, you know, whatever kind of negative response that I know I might have had. You know, it's like, you people can't even give me a day to myself, you know. But no, that wasn't him. I mean, he looks at them and goes, oh my gosh, look at the lengths that these people have gone to because they're hungry, they're thirsty, they want what I have. How can I deny them? You know, that's the heart. That's the heart of our Jesus. And frankly, that's our heart as well. It may be kind of covered over still with some of those old nature responses, but at our core, our heart beats with the heart of the Savior. And if we will allow him to set us free from those human kinds of things, we can be available at his leading to be ready, as Paul says, in season and out of season, right? So he teaches them, he ministers to them, right? Verse 35, when it was already quite late, his disciples came up to him and began saying, the place is desolate, and it is already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Now, you know, there could have been a little bit of their frustration saying, okay, it's late. It's enough, Jesus. Please, could we just get rid of these people for a while now so that we can actually, you know, have that chill time that you you told us about? And so, you know, once again, Jesus looks at the situation and I mean, just it's just amazing, right? He says to them, you give them something to eat. I'm laughing because, you know, I've learned about this principle, you know, in my life, mostly through learning how to be a kingdom leader. And, you know, most of us are used to a culture in which we're told what should be done and what to do. and if there's anything that's going to happen, well, the leader is going to initiate it. The leader is going to do a bunch of things, and we're just going to kind of tag along and help out if we can and how we can, or we'll do what we're told to do. But it's generally a very leader focused kind of a thing. So that if, per se, I come up with an idea for to do something and share it with the leader's either going to say, oh, that's a great idea, or nah, I don't think we're going to do that. But if the leader says it's a good idea, usually the leader is the one that will initiate it, figure out how to do it, and start getting things moving. But Jesus illustrates something that is so kingdom that people, I laugh now because when people come up to me with an idea, I'm like, oh, that's great. So how are you going to do that? And it's like, I do the same thing. I put it right back on their shoulders because they're coming to me saying, oh, I think we ought to do this. It's a great idea. I think we should do this. And so I'm like, well, yeah, that is a great idea. So how do you want to do it? My go-to response right now is, if you got the idea, it's probably because you're the one that's supposed to take the lead and do it. And that's exactly what Jesus does here. You see, our growth and development, into mature sons and daughters has to include us taking responsibility for the things that God shows us. And in this case, the disciples came and said, hey, we got a big problem here. These people are hungry and we have nothing to feed them with. What are we going to do? Jesus says, you feed them. You saw the problem. Now you deal with it. Right. And of course they're like, well, we got nothing. Well, I forget which of the Gospels brings this out, but he says, go see what you got. And this little boy whose mom packed him a lunch, right? 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's about it. And so that's all they have. So what happens? Well, Jesus says to them to have them all sit down in groups. And so they reclined in companies of hundreds and of 50s. So they organized it and, tried to block this out. Turns out that there was 5,000 men, which of course, culturally, that's all they would account for. So figure at least maybe twice to 3 times that when you add in women and children. So you're looking at probably easily 15,000 people, okay? Not just the 5 that, the Bible talks about here. So what does Jesus do? Verse 41, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves and kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. Wow, what a miracle. And yet it's so consistent with the way the kingdom operates. You see, Jesus talks to us about how we have a good heavenly Father, that he cares about everything. Jesus even said, don't worry about what you're going to eat, right? Well, if, Jesus couldn't say that and then basically look at this situation and go, oh, well, yeah, they're just going to have to fend for themselves. No, these people had traveled. They had been with him for who knows how many hours that day without eating. They're hanging on his every word. And Jesus, in his heart of compassion, realizes, yeah, wow, we got to take care of this situation. So let's look at what we have, and whatever we have is going to be enough. Whew. I don't know about you, but I'm still challenged by that. Because we all know what it's like to not, it just, look at stuff and it seems like we don't have enough. But here Jesus is making it so clear that if you understand the heart of the Father, if you understand his desire to bless and provide, we can come into a place where we realize, okay, whatever I have, it's going to be enough because see, he can multiply that. He can stretch it out. He can, I don't, but who knows? This is from a human scientific standpoint, right? I mean, how did he even do that? It's like, he's breaking the bread off, and as he broke it off, it didn't get smaller. you know, I mean, it's like, that's impossible. Yes, it is. But this is how things work when the supernatural, you know, uh, connects with the natural realm. So Jesus takes care of the problem. That supernatural provision is, this again is just not a one-time thing that we all can sit back and marvel at. Remember, we're looking at this from the lens of Jesus saying to us, the works that I do, you will do, and even greater works than these will you do. So I have to look at this and say, all right, show me how this works in my life or in other people's lives that you want me to minister to, and to allow for that to inform how we respond to situations where it seems like we don't have enough. Well, I don't have enough, Lord, to do this thing that you've told me to do. So you're either going to make what I have enough, or as I'm engaging in it, more is going to come. All right. And you can look at this miracle from both standpoints. What they had became enough because as they did it, more came. Every time a loaf was broken into a piece, it didn't diminish in size. And so much was created, was provided, that as it says here in verse 43, that they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces and also of the fish. I mean, wow. That is what that tells me, is that the provision that ultimately came in that situation was so much that it almost seems ridiculous. But that again is the heart of the Father. When do you see him doing things in a just enough, or okay, that's good enough kind of a mode? I think it's Bill Johnson who makes the point, how much sky do you need? How many stars do you need? I mean, it's like it's all super abundant because that's his nature. He never does anything by half. It is truly a characteristic of his to provide for us in such an abundance that we can't really even comprehend. To think that 5 loaves and 2 fish could become 5 or 12 full baskets of leftovers. I mean, what did they even do with all the leftovers? Did you ever wonder about that? I mean, 12 well, what did you do? I guess they probably said, okay, guys, grab what you need for your trip home. I mean, how wonderful is that? That the Lord even thought to provide for their journey back to their hometown. Because remember, again, this was a desolate place that Jesus was taking the disciples to so that they could relax for a bit. And of course, didn't happen. But what did happen was such a powerful example for us of the heart of the Father and his desire to go super abundant, above and beyond what we can ask or think, right? As Paul writes in Ephesians. That idea, that truth is one that I want to be fully engaged with in my life. I don't want to ever look at anything from a standpoint of lack any longer, because there is no lack. It may seem that way in the natural realm, but the natural realm is not the final answer. All right. It's who he is and what he says. That is what I'm going to stand on by his grace. And I invite you to do the same. I want to see these kind of miracles. I've heard of it happening in other places. Other ministries have experienced this exact kind of multiplication of food. I think it could go beyond that if we would be open to that possibility. And I want to be, I really do. Maybe that's one of the greater works, that we'll see multiplication, supernatural provision in areas that are beyond food. Okay, that would be awesome. So be encouraged, my friends. We have a lot of interesting things and fun things that we are going to learn how to engage in as we continue our journey of oneness with Christ. So I'm going to have fun with that. Let me say good morning to the rest of you awesome breakfast clubbers. Oh boy, look at all you guys just jumping in here today. Man, where'd I leave off? It's like I'm going all the way back up here. Donna, Ralph and Rosa, Susan D, good to see you guys. Norma, good morning. Joanne, Sharon, how are you? Ada, there's another Joanne. Callie, Alexia, how are you? Joanne, oh yes, we said good morning to you. Kathy, good morning. Jennifer, hey Patty, good morning. Yo, Aaron, how are you, man? Good to see you there. I think I got you all. If I didn't, please forgive me. It's sometimes a little hard to keep track, but I appreciate all of you guys hanging out with me. And those of you that share this video, I really appreciate that, because I love seeing new names pop up because they found out about our little breakfast club through you sharing the video. So thank you so much. As always, I'd love to hear from you. You know, I would love to hear how this broadcast, how my sharing is helping you. You know, send me a testimony. I'd love to hear from you about that. And if you have questions or you'd like to just chat about anything that's going on in your life, hey, email, Facebook message. I'd love to hear from you. Have a lovely day. Get out there and just bless somebody big with the presence and the love of God, and have some fun with that. All right. And I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks.